President Trump right now is giving remarks from the White House, from the Oval Office. And as soon as we get those taped remarks, we will play them out for all of you to see. But in the meantime, Democrats are in panic mode, reportedly calling an emergency meeting yesterday of a dozen House Democrats. Now, this comes after that embarrassing display during President Trump's joint address to Congress, including the moment Al Green shouted and waved his cane that led to his censure.
That's your warning. Remove this gentleman from the chamber.
Hello, everyone. This is Outnumbered on this Friday. I'm Kayleigh McEnany here with my co-host Emily Compagno. Also joining us, Molly Line, Fox News correspondent, Marie Harf, Fox News contributor and former State Department spokesperson under President Obama. And look who it is for the very first time on the couch, House Speaker Mike Johnson. So good to have you here, Speaker Johnson.
So good to be with you. I've been wanting to do this for a long time, so thanks for the opportunity, ladies.
We've been wanting to have you, and we are quite excited. You know, I woke up this morning, and I'm reading, and, you know, all the congressional publications, Politico, Punchbowl, Axios. Here's what they said happened last night. I was very intrigued by it. This is after the censure of Al Green. You have Politico Playbook citing Axios that says there was a very unhappy House Democratic leadership meeting. They had a come-to-Jesus meeting with a dozen House lawmakers. Punchbowl, elucidating on that, said that this included Maxwell Frost, Jasmine Crockett, two very outspoken Democrats, and they used the word that they were berated for their behavior. How ordinary is it for leadership to berate members of their own party? And were you surprised by this?
I wasn't surprised. It is extraordinary, but they did make fools of themselves on the House floor. And everyone saw it, everyone in the country. It was a reminder to them why we won so decisively in this last election cycle and why they lost. And they're really a party in total disarray, as you see it on vivid display right now. They don't have an identified leader. They don't have any vision for where they're going. They don't have a platform that they can run on because it was repudiated overwhelmingly in the election. So they're sort of flailing about, and it blew up on the House floor, and I think they deeply regret it. At least some of them do. Others apparently didn't get the message of the election.
No, Al Green among them. He becomes the fourth House Democrat to be censured in the last 4 years. And Hakeem Jeffries, your counterpart on the other side of the aisle, had this to say about the censure.
The censure resolution put forth by extreme MAGA Republicans is not worth the paper that it was written on.
He says it's not worth the paper, and House Freedom Caucus members are asking to put forward a resolution to remove Al Green from his committee assignments. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, the interesting thing is he was censured for disrupting the proceedings of the House. And while I was reading the censure that was voted in, by the way, by 10 House Democrats who joined Republicans in that, they disrupted the proceedings of the House. So there's some irony there. We have to keep decorum. We have to keep control of the proceedings because we're the greatest deliberative body in the world, and we need to act like it. And I think this went way over the line. By the way, these censures, this is not a normal thing. I mean, he was only the 29th member of the House to be censured in the entire history of the U.S. Congress. So it was above the pale. He's the first person to ever be removed from the floor during a presidential address. It was appropriate, and we've got to maintain control. You know,
Emily's going to hop in here, but just a quick follow-up. What about his committee assignments? Do you think that's on the table?
Well, I talked to Freedom Caucus members and other Republicans who are deeply concerned about this. They say we have to restore control one way or the other, and they need to be real consequences, and it's something we'll be looking at early next week.
Okay.
So, Mr. Speaker, it seems that there are some reasonable heads prevailing, right? We have Michigan State Senator Mallory McMorrow. She says, look, these Democrats are sick and tired of performative nonsense. We don't want to see our elected officials trying to be cute or clever, she says. So back to Tuesday night. Peggy Noonan, Democrat, esteemed WSJ opinion editor, wrote a thoughtful op-ed today where she said, look, I came to 3 conclusions after Tuesday. She said they're not serious people, talking about her own party, these elected officials who refused to stand up, who refused to clap. 2, their job was to show they are an alternative to Mr. Trump, and instead they proved why he won. And then her third and most important, she said, they will continue to lose for a long time. And she talked about how to stand and cheer, to show support for these incredible Americans that were there that evening was to show love. And instead, she said, they brought the hate. So my question, to quote the Black Eyed Peas, which I got to see in concert 100 years ago, where is the love, Speaker? And do you think that Democrats will listen to these reasonable voices?
I think most of them won't. And you saw that by their vote. They voted against censuring Al Green. They're doubling down, tripling down on their failed policies and their message, and it does not resonate with the people. Peggy Noonan used to be a speechwriter for Ronald Reagan. I mean, she's a pretty keen observer of politics and human nature, and what she's seen here is a trend that no one can deny, that the Democratic Party has left the American people. When I was a kid, I grew up in Louisiana, in the Deep South. There weren't many Republicans. I didn't know many, but that party left the people of my state and every other state over the years, and now they went through that woke progressive nonsense. They went so vigorous and aggressive. It's almost like the pendulum swung all the way to the left and it clicked, and now it's sort of moving back. And what President Trump represents, and our party by extension now, is a force that is moving that pendulum back to what President Trump says is common sense. And that was long overdue. And the people embrace it, and the polls verify that they're in favor of what we're doing, restoring common sense and our conservative principles, which I know that we can demonstrate are good for everyone. It will lead to human flourishing. And then we'll keep these new demographics of folks that we gained in this election cycle and govern for many years to come.
Yeah, Speaker, it's so interesting. A lot of Democrats remember Joe Wilson yelling, "You lie," at Barack Obama, and Marjorie Taylor Greene and Lauren Boebert saying some really awful things to Joe Biden. So the State of the Union in general has become a little bit more of a circus, I think. So Democrats will also remember that. But you're right in saying that Democrats are searching for a message and a leader. You know, I'm a Democrat. I looked at what happened on Tuesday night and did not like a lot of it, right? What I did like was Alyssa Slotkin, the senator from Michigan, who was the official response, who's a moderate, worked for the George W. Bush CIA, right, worked on Iraq and other intelligence issues. And she came out and said, prices are higher. They're firing veterans all around the country. We are hearing in town halls that voters, Democrats may not be winning them over quite yet, but Republicans are starting to lose them. So I'd love your thoughts on sort of her message. There is a moderate wing of the party, and it was on display in that speech, but also what your members are starting to hear. We're seeing these town halls where members are getting berated. I lived through the Obamacare town halls, and I learned as a Democrat, once you start getting those, canceling town halls, things don't look good for you. So what do you make of sort of this moment and that part of the party, and also how your members are hearing from folks?
Well, look.
And are they going to cancel town halls?
I'll say this. The president is now, 45 days into his administration.
Something like that.
We're transitioning from Bidenomics and the just terrible economy that was delivered by the last administration. It takes a while to turn that ship around, but we are doing that. And the Congress is working to codify all the executive orders that the president is doing. But with regard to the town halls, look, I mean, we have Republicans who want to go out and be among their constituents and hear their concerns and dialogue with them. It's a big part of the job. But the problem is they're being ambushed right now by what are some, in many cases, paid protesters. You've got George Soros-funded groups. They're very well organized. That's one thing Democrats do very well, is this organization, right? And they go an hour or two early before the event. They fill all the seats. And so the actual constituents of these Republican members can't actually make it into the arenas. And so it's not a productive dialogue at all. They're just walking into an ambush. So we've encouraged our members to think thoughtfully about that. There are a lot of ways now with technology to be in constant dialogue with your constituents. You can do telephone town halls and get 10,000 people on the phone at the same time. You can have small group meetings with industry or organization groups or various parts of your community, and to be very productive. So we want to do the job, do it well, do it efficiently and effectively, and walking into a staged production like that doesn't serve anyone's interest.
Speaker Johnson, I know Molly has a question for you, and we're going to get to that in just a moment. But I noticed something this week. I looked back at Biden's State of the Union last year, and I saw you stand when he mentioned John Lewis. And I saw you stand when he mentioned standing as America to get the hostages freed from Hamas. You were able to recognize those common humanity moments, and it doesn't appear that your colleagues on the other aisle were able to do that for DJ Daniel, a cancer survivor. Why do you think you could recognize that, but they could not?
It's a great question. It was shameful. I mean, they didn't stand for the families of, Lake and Riley and victims of crime and all of these things. The hostage who was released after his elderly mother pleaded for all of that from the tragedy in Israel. I mean, they missed their opportunity. And look, a State of the Union or a joint address is meant to be, they're supposed to be unifying moments. It's something we all join in together. It used to be a celebrated event of America. And so you look for those moments that you can join and all join together. President Trump provided many of them, and they just sat through it all. And so I think it sent a profound message to the people. I mean, it was shameful. And I don't know how they explained their way out of that.
Yeah. Well, we talk about the bingo cards and the waving of the cane. At the same time, there's an opportunity here for more moderate Democrats. Marie was talking about this to come forward and appear sane in comparison. So there is this window of opportunity as the Democrats are trying to figure out where they're going to go and how they get back on the map. And well, they're definitely throwing a little spaghetti against the wall in a lot of different respects. Here we are. We're about to go into a pretty intense period where we're going to be talking about money. This is what Congress does. And there's a lot of criticism right now, and the Democrats want to put language in about how much power President Trump has and what Republicans in Congress will do to rein that in. What do you picture in the coming weeks ahead? Hopefully not any, Serbian legislative smoke bombs being tossed around. Expect a little more peace than that.
Well, that's right. And this illustrates that the radical extremists in the Democrat Party have outnumbered the moderates. There's only a small handful of moderates left, and that's been on display here over and over. And they tried to do it, to your point, in the appropriations process. The Republican appropriators are negotiating in good faith. They're exchanging top-line negotiation numbers back and forth. And about 2 weeks ago, the Democrats threw into this outrageous requirement, this stipulation, hey, we won't fund the government unless you tie the hands of the executive branch, unless you put in all these stipulations and you take away the authority that they're duly allowed in our system. And we're not going to do that. They know we're not going to do that. So it looked like they were trying to engineer a shutdown of the government, which is terribly irresponsible. We're not going to do that. We will be running a clean CR next week. And what that will do is allow the White House time, the administration, to continue the DOGE efforts, finding all these extraordinary levels of savings and waste, fraud, and abuse. We'll be able to incorporate that into the budgeting for FY26, which will start almost immediately after we're done next week. And so that's going to be a great innovation. I think it's going to change the way government works. I was with Elon Musk in his office across this parking lot from the White House about a week ago. Late at night, we're meeting, and I said, we're both getting increasingly excited about all the savings that he's finding. And I said, we're looking at this differently. You think of it as a data analyst and a scientist. I'm looking at this as a constitutional law attorney and a historian. Elon, it's not just about saving money. This is revolutionary. We're going to restore the founders' original vision for the Constitution. They wanted a limited federal government that had careful oversight by Congress, but Congress hasn't been able to do that. Because they've been hiding the data. He's found it. It's going to change the way we do government.
Speaker Johnson, you had a viral moment with Vice President J.D. Vance during the State of the Union. It was joint address to Congress, I should say. It was a hot mic moment. We want to play that.
By the way, I think the speech is going to be great, but I don't know how you do this for 90 minutes.
The hardest thing was doing it during Biden, when the speech was a stupid campaign speech.
I mean, what's the backstory? Did you not know your mic was hot?
I didn't. They turn these mics off all the time. I didn't know it was on, and
They're always on.
Sorry about that, but I was candid there.
It was candid.
Okay.
It was funny. And I got to say, my sister who's in social media says organic works. And social media loved that moment.
Oh, dear.
You've joined the ranks of Britney Spears and everyone else who had hot mic moments, Speaker. It's totally cool.
And the ranks of Outnumbered here.
Exactly.